Hey everybody, welcome back. This is Innovating with Sheets Part 2. And today we are going to talk about how to create a data sheet that does the thinking for you so you can spend more time working with students. Let's get started. Teacher confession. I don't know about you, but I have spent hours trying to analyze my data, find patterns, find trends, identify students who are struggling, and create groups. This data sheet that we are going to build today is going to have you stop doing all that. It's going to calculate that growth automatically, highlight which student is your greatest concern, celebrate which student grew the most, and help you make instructional decisions. So a couple things we're going to look at today with Google Sheets. We are going to use formulas to calculate growth. We are going to format cells based on conditional formatting rules. We are going to use if formulas to be able to make instructional groups. We are going to create spark lines to show growth trends, create functions to show class summaries, and we're going to make it so we can input new data and even new students and have this continue to work for us and keep our data fresh. Don't worry about this screen. I'm going to have this screen also on that Google slide. So right after you see your checklist, this screen will be available for you to reference as you go ahead and make your own data sheet. Okay, so here's our data sheet. So we have different sections. For example, this is my ELA state testing, but I also have math. I have my unit tests and my math unit tests and my science unit tests. So I can input data for every subject I teach. Let's just focus on ELA for the purpose of this tutorial. So for ELA, there's 3 big progress monitoring assessments that we do, at least when you're in 4th grade. We do fluency, we do FAST, and we have our iReady. I know younger grades, you also have core and flamingo, and you can easily input those things as well, so you could track that data. So all of our charts are going to start with the beginning, middle, and end of the year section. Once you've hit the middle of the year, the beginning of the year data will work with it to create for you a growth section as well as a growth chart, and it will help you determine an instructional group. Then at the end of the year, when you have that end of the year data, you could put that in, and now you're also able to see your total year's growth and your growth chart, whether students declined or had a positive growth or a neutral growth. You can see that this same thing is consistent with fluency. I also have it for my FAST and my iReady. It's the same exact formulas. So what are these formulas? The beginning of the year, middle of the year, end of the year is nothing special. It's just my data. Where the formulas and the conditional formatting come into play is when I'm looking at my growth and my instructional groups. So I created a column and I called it mid-growth. And what I did was I did conditional formatting. So if I go to my format and I go to conditional formatting, you could see that it is color-coded. It's color-coded where if the value, which I'm going to talk about in just a second where I'm getting this value from, is greater than or equal to 11, then it's going to code it green because this student is progressing. If it is yellow, between 1 and 10, I'm going to code it yellow because I'm concerned about the student. And red, less than 0 or 0, this is a student who is showing no growth or declining, and I need to intervene immediately. Now, how I got this was a formula. So if you see, I click right here in this cell and you can see the formula I used. It's equal sign, which tells the computer you're about to put in a formula. C8, which means column C, row 8, which is the middle of the year for George Weasley. And it is minus B8, column B, row 8, beginning of the year for George Weasley, gives me my mid-growth. What's great about Google Sheets is that it's very intuitive, and I'm able to drag this little dot here all the way down, and it's going to apply that formula for every cell and just change the row each time. So you can see for Luna, it changes it to 9, for Fred to 10. So that's how I get that growth number automatically without having to sit there and do those calculations myself. This feature is one of my favorites just because it's so quick to look at and see trends with students. It's called a growth chart, and you do it by doing sparkline. So again, equal sign, because I'm telling my computer I'm about to write a formula. I write the word sparkline in all capital letters. I put parentheses and I tell it where I want it to look. B8 to C8. So again, I'm telling it that I want it to be tracking that growth. And then it creates for me this little line graph that either shows positive, negative, or neutral growth. For my instructional group setting, I also have a formula that's used to immediately put students into groups: monitor, intervene, or progressing. So if you look up here at this formula, it's an if formula. And what this is doing is it's telling my computer, if this is happening, we're going to do something. So if, and I'm looking at E8, which is right here, the mid growth for George, is less than 1, we're going to intervene. Meaning that if they're showing no growth or they're declining, I need to do something right away. Put a comma. If the growth is less than or equal to 10, I'm going to put a comma and type in monitor. And if it is above, and I don't even need to put it, I just put comma progressing, and the formula automatically knows, well, if it's not those two, then anything else would be progressing. So in this case, 11 and above would be progressing. So based on this formula, whatever I input is going to give me a number. So let me show you. Let's pretend that for middle of the year, George didn't get a 35. Let's pretend George got a 6, just so you could see what would happen. Automatically, it's going to show that it's negative 28. My growth chart is going to decline. He is now in my intervene group. So these things all changed because of these formulas that were in place. Now let's look at one of my favorite things about this data sheet, and that is this dashboard up here. This dashboard helps you see your data so quick and at a glance. Immediately, I know that for my fluency, Glinda is my growth champion. This girl is reading and reading quickly. My focus student is George Weasley. I need to work with him on helping him to become more fluent. And I could see that by mid-year, my average growth of words was 4. As a teacher, that might make me realize I need to do a little bit more work with fluency in my classroom. Looking at my end of the year data, I could see that Hermione Granger is now my growth champion. George Weasley is still my focus student, and my average now is 41. So my class definitely grew from the middle of the year to the end of the year. I did the same exact thing with my FAST data. And let me show you the formulas I used. So if I wanted to identify who was if I wanted to identify which student grew the most on FAST, this is the formula I would use. And let me break it down for you and explain to you what this formula is saying. This formula is putting the equal sign, again, telling the computer I'm writing a formula, and I write the word index. What that means is the parameters I'm about to put in are just the index. That's going to give the computer the name. So I want it to look at A8, which is George, all the way to 96. So I have plenty of space to add new students if I get new students throughout the year. And I'm going to put a colon between them because it's telling the computer between these two. And that's where it's going to get the names. Then I want it to match. That means I want it to pull the number from, and I'm going to tell it, I want the maximum, which means the greatest number, from M8 all the way to M96. So now I'm telling the computer I want the biggest number. And what this last piece does, where I repeat it again, is I'm telling it match the name to the number. So now that formula has helped me figure out that George Weasley was my growth champion. Again, that formula, almost identical, except this time, instead of max, I want the min. I want the smallest growth. And that helped me identify Fred Weasley. I did the same thing over here for my fast growth. Same formulas. The difference this time, though, is because it's the end of the year, I'm now looking in column P, which is where my end of the year data is. So my end of the year growth is in column P, which is why it now says P here. Whereas my middle of the year data was M, which is why this is M. Okay, so to find the average, all we do is this formula right here. Equals round, parenthesis, I want the average of M8, which is where that middle of the year data is, all the way through M99, and it gives me the number 4. So on average, my students grew 4 points. Then for my end of the year, same formula, except instead of M, we're using P because that's where my end of the year data is. And it's going to spit out for me 63 average points. So again, my class substantially improved from the middle of the year to the end of the year. Okay, I do want to show you quickly, in case you're worried if you're making this tracker and you're like, why does it look like this? This is working with the data you put in. So obviously at the beginning of the year, you're just going to have beginning of the year data, in which case it's going to look like this. I'm not going to have a growth chart. Everyone's going to be intervened because there's no growth. Everyone's going to be over here because it's going to be in the negatives. So at the beginning of the year, this data chart's not going to be as helpful for you. But as you go through and you're able to get data from students and collect it along the way, you're going to see that it's going to help you make those instructional decisions. Okay, folks, that is it. Please feel free to use my little cheat sheet here that I've provided for you. But we calculated growth, we applied conditional formatting, we used those if formulas, spark lines, and we created a class summary. Remember, when it comes to Google Sheets, if you can automate it, do it. Let Google Sheets handle that math so you can focus on your students. Okay, guys, now it's your turn. You're going to check out those Thompson tips on the next slide. And then you're going to look at that checklist and try to build a data tracker yourself. If you don't have any students right now, that's okay. You can make up fictional characters like I did and a fictional data just so you could see how the sheet works properly. All right, this wraps up our final lesson for Module 3. I cannot wait to see how well you do on the quiz. Okay, everybody, I will say goodbye now for the final time, and I am so proud to officially call you a Google Master.